Okay. Okay, we're starting with Tehillim, Psalm 35. Those of you who have this edition, you may have this edition. It's the one I kind of recommended, is on page 162, 163. And you can use whatever translation you have. We're going to be going back and forth between the Hebrew and the English, and hopefully making our way through this best we can. And Nathan, would you like to will you give us a little read through just to give us a sense of the poetry of this?
לדוד ריבה אדוני את ריבי לכם את לוחמי חזק מגן וצינה וקומה עזרתי פרק חנית וסקור לקראת רודפי אמור לנפשי ישועתך אני יבושו ויקלמו מבקשי נפשי יסוגו אחור ויחפרו חושבי רעתי יהיו כמוץ לפני רוח ומלאך אדוני דוחה ידרכם חושך בחלקלקות מלאך אדוני רודפם כי חינם טמנו לי שחת רשתם חינם חפרו לנפשי תבואהו שואה לא ידע ורשתו אשר טמנתי לכדו ושואה יפול בה ונפשי תגיל באדוני תסיס ישועתו כל עצמותיי תאמרנה אדוני מי כמוך מציל אני מחזק ממנו אני ואביון מגוזלו יקומון עדי חמאס אשר לא ידעתי ישלמוני רעה תחת טובה שכל לנפשי אני בחלותם לבושי שק הניתי ועצום נפשי תפילתי על חיקי תשוב קרע כאח לי התהלכתי כאבל כל דרך שחותי וצלעי שמחו נאספו עלי נכים לא ידעתי קראו ולא דמו נחנפי לגי מאוג חרוק עלי שיני מו אדוני כמה תראה השיבה נפשי משועיהם בכפירים יחידתי לך בקהל רב באמצו מהללך אל ישמחו לי אויבי שקר שונאי חינם יקרצו עין כי לא שלום ידברו ועל רגעי הארץ דברי מרמות יחשובון וירחיבו עלי פיהם אמרו האח ראתה עינינו ראית אדוני אל תחרש אדוני אל תרחק ממני העירה והקיצה לשפטי אלוהי ואדוני לריבי שפטני כצדקך אדוני אלוהי ואל ישמחו לי אל יאמרו בליבם האח נפשנו אל יאמרו בלענו יבושו ויחפרו יחדיו צמחי רעתי ילבשו בושת וכלימה המגדילים עלי ירונו וישמחו חפצי צדקי ויאמרו תמיד יגדל אדוני החפץ שלום עבדו ושוני תגע צדקך כל היום תהילתך.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Okay, one of the things that may have happened both to you and to me is suddenly suddenly you hear a line and it's so familiar because it's included in the liturgy, something that you say every day, and you say, "What? It's here? It's right in the middle of this? I had no idea." Which is that happens to me every single day. Even if I read it through before, study it before, still I'm always a little bit surprised to hear the words. So it starts out with David. So as I said before, whenever it begins Lid David, to David, the idea is that this is a rush of inspiration. Sometimes it says Mizmor le David. It says a song to David, right? So that means, at least one understanding is that means that he began the process. He starts to sing, and then the inspiration came to him. And here it seems when it says the David, the indication is that the inspiration came to him just like this. And he's going to be talking about here again and we've had this before. He's talking about the experience of having those people who are joining me now. Joining me now. This is, by the way, this is the synagogue where I attend. Synagogue where I attend, and the flags were not my idea. So I'm not making any political statements here. But the Russian ladies took my library upstairs, and so what can I say? So I'm just here to learn Torah, not to advertise. Okay, so David Riva Adonai et Rivai says, God, fight my battles for me. Fight against those who attack me. Lachem et lachmi and lachmai, and says wage war on those who battle against me. So he starts out almost with a demand, and you'll see that this demand is like, please. The demand is fight against those people who are fighting against me. Riva is more like to contend, right? More like to contend someone, to argue with someone, to have beef with someone, as opposed to lacham, which means literally to make war against somebody. Chazek magen tina. He says, take hold of shield and armor of kuma bizrati, and stand up and help me. This is very, it's the image is it's a very military, martial image. I know I'm in the fight of my life. You stand up, put on your armor, right, and come and help me. V'charek hanit, okay, arm yourself with a spear, usgor likrat rodfai. It says, and chase away those people who and push away those people who chase me. The Emor Nafshi Yishvatech Anin says, and tell me I am your rescuer. Right? He has this image, right? He has this image that God is going to come. God is going to come, going to come in. He's wearing wearing, so to speak. Obviously, we don't believe that God wears armor. We don't believe. Obviously, we don't. This is a metaphorical image that God is going to rush in. He's going to rush in with his armor and his spear, and he's going to say, don't worry, I'm here. Don't worry, I'm your rescuer. It says, and may shame and disgrace come to those who pursue my life, to those who come after me. David HaMelech is not ashamed to wish bad on his enemies. that comes through many times. That he's not ashamed to wish bad for his enemies, for the people who are chasing after him. And vakshen nafshi, the people who are after my life, right? For the people who are after my life, he says, I wish them shame and disgrace. Yisoga achor yachbaru v'choshvei ra'ati. He says, and retreat, having to rush back, and humiliation, and humiliation to those who plan harm for me, those who are thinking to harm me. And again, I always say that the main goal here is to find ourselves in the Psalms, right? At least in my experience, unfortunately, we all had the situation where we have been under siege, where for whatever our internal enemies, our external enemies, are all the things that are our obstacles in life seem to be surrounding us. When we say to Hashem, we say to God, please, get up and help me and come save me. And I don't want to see. I want to see the people. I want to see the people and the things which damage me. I want to see them. I want to see them hurt. He says, "Yiyu kamotz lifnei ruach." Let them be like straw in the wind. Umalach Adonai docheh, and the angel of God scattering them. And I want to see them just dissipating into the wind. I want to see my enemies just blown away. Yehi darkam choshet Yehi darkam choshech halak loket. This may their path be dark and just halak loket and I guess I would wet, slippery. O malach Adonai rodfam, and the God of angel drive them away, right? Literally chase them away, right? So he uses these two images. One is this image of like chaff being blown away in the wind, and the other is that they're running on a dark and slippery path, and the angel of God is chasing them away. No, when it says Malach Adonai, we don't know what angel he's talking about. He doesn't say. He doesn't say what angel he's talking about. It's Kichinam. Tamnu li shachad rashtam. He says, for nothing, for no reason, they hid a pit below their net. Chinam, chafru l'nafshi, and says, and for nothing, they dug it to kill me. So he says, all of this, it's not like I did anything to them. It's not like I did anything to them, and unfortunately, there are times when people do things to us for nothing, we didn't do anything to them. We didn't do any harm to them, but they may seek to harm us. And he says, these people, they hid a pit below, they tried to capture it to me, and they dug it. And they dug this pit in order to capture me for nothing. Now he says, and Tevo'ehi Shoah says, let them be destroyed. Says Tevo'ehi Shoah lo yeda. Let them be destroyed when they don't know. Okay, let them be destroyed when they least like he translates it nice, when they least expect it. Okay, let them be destroyed when they least expect it. V'rishto asher taman tilto b'sho'ah yipod ba. He says, trapped by the very net they've hidden, and they fall down into the darkness. Right? They should be trapped. So if they set a trap for me, let them be trapped in the very net that they set for me. It says, Nafshi tagil ba'Adonai tasiz b'shuato. It says, then my soul will rejoice in God, and I'll be joyful in his deliverance. So he says, if you help me, he says, if you help me, what's my reaction going to be? If you save me from these enemies, what is my reaction? My action is going to be, I'm going to have a great joy. And so it's not just nafshi tagil ba'Adonai. My heart is going to rejoice, and Hashem is going to rejoice in God, and not just going to say, "Hey, I'm free. Okay, yeah, everything is okay. I'm safe. Okay, no problem." Instead, because I'm going to attribute it to you, and I'm going to praise you. Tasis b'shuato, and I'm going to be joyful in your deliverance. My entire being, all of my bones. Okay, that's another way of translating it. All of my bones will speak and say, right? Says God, who is like you? Who is like you? You may have noticed that that when Jews pray, right, they move a lot. They move back and forth. Well, one of the explanations for that is from this verse. Kol atzmata tamana, all of my bones will talk to you, right? That the idea is that your entire body should be involved in the prayer, right? That if you really have an enthusiasm for God, then all of you is going to be. I think that extended also to the Shakers and the Quakers and to various others, but that you should be moving. But more than that, it means that the joy will extend into every part of my body, and then finally you say, "Dasha mi kamocha," who is like you? It's a question that doesn't have an answer. It's a rhetorical question that can never be answered. Nobody can ever answer the question, who is like God? Because nothing is like God. The very definition of God is that nothing is like God. God is absolutely is not only one, not only echad, but yachid. It's not just one, but unique. right? Absolutely unique. So he says, Adonai, he says, all my entire being, every part of me will say, Adonai mi chamocha, who is like you? Matzil ani mechazak mimenu v'ani v'yom mikozlo. Says, who rescues the poor from those who are stronger than them, the needy and destitute from those who rob them. Says, who? I says, I know you. You saw me, and you saw that I was poor. It's interesting, you know. The guy, yeah, David HaMelech, he's a king. He's poor. But every person who's in trouble is poor, right? There's no when it comes to suffering, there's no rich and poor. Right? The rich suffer just in the same way as the poor suffer. The powerful, you know, the powerful suffer. The powerful suffer also. And so he says, but you see when somebody is in poverty, when somebody's impoverished, when somebody is poor, it's like the word in Arabic, miskin, I guess became in Hebrew, miskin, right? Miskin in Hebrew, right? Miskin, right? It doesn't mean poor in the way that we usually use it to mean poor. It means a person who's miskin. I don't know. I don't know how to translate it. Somebody who's in trouble. Somebody who's in trouble.
Nebuch.
Nebuch, right? Nebuch, right? It's like Nebuch. That I'm sure that really helped a lot. Okay, we just translate into Yiddish. Okay, that really helps. Okay, but yeah, my grandmother used to use this expression. She used to refer to people as nicht durchdacht, which I think means something like it shouldn't happen to you. It shouldn't happen to us. Right. So she referred to somebody as a nicht durchdacht, as somebody who, like, whatever it is that happened to them shouldn't happen to you. So he recognizes this. He says, Yakumo ede Hamas. He says, false witnesses, or Hamas is a very powerful word. I mean, it's you know, of course, we see the word Hamas in the news, and it's an acronym for something completely else. But in Hebrew, the word Hamas means violence, chaos. Here he's translating as falseness. But Yakumo ade Hamas, witnesses of Hamas, witnesses of chaos, of violent chaos, stand up against me. Asher lo yadati. He says about things that I don't know anything about. Yushaluni, they ask me questions, right? Which is an experience I think also a lot of us have had. You know, the question, when was the last time you beat your wife? You know, like these questions, there's no way to answer them right? There's no way to answer them right, because the questions themselves are designed to trip you up, right? So he says, he asked me about things I don't know. He says, Yilshamuni ra'a tachat tova. They repay my good with evil, shechol nafshi, and wish death upon me. You know, it's interesting. My rabbi, Al Shalom, my rabbi, one thing that he emphasized to me is the worst thing you can ever do. The worst thing you can ever do is to answer somebody's good with bad. He says, if you don't answer somebody's good at all, if you're just simply ungrateful, he says, that's not great, okay? But it's not horrible. So if somebody does it good for you and you're not effusive in your thanks and you just nod, right? Okay, that's not great, because you should be, because it's important. It's important to show hakarat tov, right? To show acknowledgement of the good. But to give bad for good, to give bad for good, that's really horrible. Somebody does something good for you, and you respond with bad. That is a terrible thing. So he says, Yishamu ra tachat tova, says here, repay my good with evil. And they're Shechol, like it's like to weigh, right? I need somebody who's better in Hebrew than me. Shechol, I think that means to weigh. But I'll take his translation here. They wish death upon me. He says, Vani. But as far as I'm concerned, it's one of the most beautiful things in the Psalms is when he says Ve'ani. He talks about other people. He says, this is, this, he says, Vani and me. He says, Vani, Bechalotam, the Vushi Sak. It says, when they were ill, I wore sackcloth. When they were sick, I put on sackcloth. Putting on sackcloth was a sign of repentance. It meant that you were saying special prayers, right? So when they were sick, right, I beseeched God on their behalf. It says Ineti betzom nashi, and I afflicted myself, my soul, with fasting when they were sick. He says, Utfilati al cheki tashuv. It says, may I have whatever I wished upon them. I wished upon them health. Right? I wished upon them health. I prayed for them. I prayed for them, and now let it fall on me at least. Okay? Skre'ai ka'achli says I was like they were friends or brothers. I considered them to be my friends, even my brothers. He talachti be'evel. This is the em kodesh shechoti. He says, I went around bent in gloom, like a person mourning his mother. I was so concerned for them. I was so concerned for their welfare that I wandered around in a daze of worry, right? 24 hours a day, I wandered around in a daze of worry. Uvatzali says, but I was reeling. Samchu neasafu says, and they were happy, right? And they were happy, and they gathered around. Neasafu alai nechim. Even the ones that were lame, they gathered around me. V'lo yadati, and I don't understand why. The karui says v'lo damu. He says, and they tore into me without drawing blood. They tore into me without drawing blood. So a translator says, and this is what Rashi says also. What does it mean? It means with words, right? But think about how, it's a beautiful image, right? So here I was. I considered other people to be my brothers and to be my friends, and I prayed for them, and I worried for them. And what do? They come and they attack me, and they attack me with words. The Chanfe la'ageh says with flattery and mockery. Why? Ma'og charok alai shinemo. It says just to get a meal for my enemy. They grind their teeth at me, right? Just for a little bit of just for a little meal, just for their own benefit, right? They grind their teeth on me. And now he turns to God. He says, Adonai, God, Lord, come today. How long will you watch this? And I think, again, human experience. Sometimes we really look at God, and we say, how long are you going to watch this? We have that experience where something is happening to us, we're having an experience, and maybe it's very painful. And we say, like, how long are you going to watch this go on? Hashiv nafshi, misoem. He says, to save me from their violence. Mikfirim yichidati. It says, and my yechidati, my life from these lions, from the lions. Right? How long you gonna look on before you save me? You know, and we, of course, you know, we have, I saw today a beautiful piece. One of the letters of Reb Nassim of Breslov, and his son writes him a letter. And in the letter, the son complains, and he says, my life is really hard. He says, my in-laws are at me, right? My in-laws are complaining about me all the time. And my business is horrible, and my health is horrible. My wife's health is horrible. My children's life is horrible. Health is horrible. And he goes on and on and on and on. And his father writes him back and he says, look, he says, it's the end of Shabbat and I'm very tired. I'm really tired. He says, and I know I've like talked to you about all these things before, and I've given you all the advice I know how to give you, you know, from the teachings of my rabbi, Rabbi Nachman. I gave you all the things I could possibly do. He says, the only thing I can think of is to tell you what the Rebbe said to me when I said the same thing to him. He says, I once came to him and I asked him, I complained about everything. I complained about my in-laws. I complained about my health. I complained about my money. And the Rebbe looked at me and he said, Nar bitachon. There's rak bitachon. There's only trust. There's only trust, right? There's nothing but, for my Muslim friends, tawakkul. There's nothing but trust. And he says those words flew from his lips like an arrow into my heart. So I thought about that. I was thinking about that today a lot. And then there's this other thing, right? There's this other thing. Okay, I have trust in God. But at some point you say, how long are you going to watch? When is it going to come? I trust you. But when? Right? How long do I have to experience this? Right? So there's a tension there between that trust that you have that God is going to come and he's going to save you, and that everything is going to be all right, or everything is going to be as it should be, or that it even is as it should be. And that wanting for things, to be better. So he says, Odeh b'kaharav. Says, what am I going to do? I'm going to, in a great assembly, says, I'm going to thank you. Okay, b'charav, in a big assembly, in a big community, I'm going to, full, like these chairs were all full. And I'm going to praise you. I'm going to thank you. He says, Ba'am atzum heleka. Says, I'm going to praise you. I'm going to praise you among a vast crowd. Right? That's what I'm going to do. And says, may my lying enemies not rejoice over me. Sonai chinam, the people who hate me for nothing, yikretzu ayin, may they not mock me with their eyes. Says, kilo shalom yidaberu, because it says they don't speak about peace. They don't speak about peace. But against the oppressed of the world, they plan treachery against. It says my enemies they're not looking for peace in the world. They're not looking for peace, but they speak against the oppressed, the oppressed in the world, and they plan treachery. Yarchivu alai pihem, they open their mouths wide to me. Amru, and they say, hey, I love this. Heyach, na'ata einenu. We have seen what we wanted, right? The heyach, and they translate it as yes here, but I don't think that's what it is. I think it's actually the sound. I think it's the sound of joy. Right? Ha ha ha! We've seen what we want, what we wanted. right? We've seen what we wanted. We've seen you. We saw you suffer. That's what makes us happy. And so he turns to God, right? Eat Adonai, you saw this. Al techarash, don't stay silent. Adonai al techak mimeni. God, don't remain far from me. And how many times have, I don't know, I have this feeling all the time. Sometimes I experience nothing special, right? Whatever a human being experiences, right? Whatever every human being experiences. And sometimes that involves pain, sometimes it involves suffering, sometimes it involves humiliation. And you say to God, you say, you saw this happen to me, right? You saw this happen to me. You know, how long are you going to be silent? How long are you going to remain far from me? And is God really far from you? It says, Al terchak mimeni. It's not that he's far away from you. He feels far away from you. Right? God is close, is here, everywhere, right? But feels far away. Ira hakitza. He says, stir, wake up, the mishpatai, to bring me judgment. Elohai Adonai l'revi. Says, God is God, my master. God, my master, l'revi, right? To my fight, literally to my fight, right? Get up to my case. Get up and defend me, right? It's very, it's this one of the things that's beautiful. One of the things that's beautiful about the Tehillim is that he's so real with God, right? He's so real with God. He's not afraid to say, please, and how long are you going to watch this? Please get up. He says, Al Yomru b'libam, hach nafsheno. He says, let them not think, ha 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 ha, to our souls, right? This is great. Let them not think of that. To say, Al Yomru bilaunuhu, says, we've consumed him. We finished him, right? Don't let them say that they finished me. Yivoshu v'yachparu yachdav. Let all of them together be embarrassed and disgraced. Smechei ra'ati, the people who are happy at my pain, the people who rejoiced in my suffering, the people who liked the bad that happened to me. It says, Yilbashu boshed v'chima, let them be dressed in shame and humiliation, right? Let them wear their shame and humiliation as a garment so that everybody can see it, so that they know that they're walking around and they see it. The people who gloat over me, the people who lord over me, the people who think they're big over me, right? The people who act superior to me, let them have the experience of being in this state of humiliation. Finish up. Yaronov yismachu. May there be joyous singing and happiness. For those who seek out my innocence, or for those who see my goodness, right? For those people who it's funny. We often see the way it's put is hefetze tzidki, for the people who desire my rightness. But really, what it means is like sometimes we tend to see what we expect to see. If we think someone is bad, we're going to see bad about them. And if we expect somebody is good, we're going to see the good about them. So all those people who have confidence in me, rightly, that they're going to see good, for those people, There should be joyous singing and happiness. Yamru tamid yigdal Adonai. They should always say, God be glorified. Chafetz shalom avdo, and desires the peace of his servant. Says then, Ulshoni, this is my tongue. Teged tzidkecha. Will speak of your righteousness. Kol hayom tinatecha, and your praise all day long. And that's how the psalm ends. That in that moment when you save me, now of course in our reality is when God saves us, right? We immediately start thinking about what the next problem is. I don't know that we take the time sometimes to celebrate. Diana, you have a question, thought, insight.
Yeah, so thank you. So this is interesting where David is very open about wishing, I don't know about evil exactly, but he wishes humiliation on his enemies,
Yeah.
right? And so I was trying to remember if it was a midrash or if it was in the Torah. Maybe you can help me remember the story as part of the chavruta I was doing, where Miriam, is it Miriam who's punished? Somebody is punished for not for with the tambourines, I thought. You know, when we crossed the Red Sea, I thought I had read a midrash that said Miriam was punished because she led the women in song and dance with the tambourines, and that Hashem said, "No, we do not celebrate the death and the suffering even of our enemies because they too are children of God."
Right.
And I was trying to find that midrash and I couldn't. The only midrash I found was that the leprosy, something she was punished for not for
Yeah.
that.
No, the midrash is actually about the angels. So apparently,
Ah.
the midrash goes. I'm trying to remember where it is. I also have trouble remembering where it is, but the midrash goes that that the angels started to that when they saw Bnei Israel, they're dancing by the shore and they're singing about the dead Egyptians. The angels think, "Oh, this is fun. Yeah, we're going to do this too," and they start to sing. And Hashem turns to the angels and he says, "No." Says you don't get. He says you don't get to sing. Says those are also my creatures. Says my creatures are destroyed. Right, the Egyptians are destroyed, and you're going to sing. And
But then why is Miriam allowed to sing and the people are allowed to sing, but the
right.
angels
That's a
aren't?
good. Okay. So that's a good question. So one of the questions is, okay, well then, it seems to be saying that we're not supposed to rejoice over the destruction of our enemies, right? On the other hand, right, it's talking about the angels. So I think part of it is a question of perspective, right? From the human perspective, I have real suffering, right? I have real suffering, and I see what happens, and I look at these people who are the Egyptians, I guess, who hurt me and enslaved me, and I see them hurt. It's natural that I'm going to have that feeling. If you're an angel and you're able to sort of look up above the world, right? And you're able to understand things at the level of an angel, right? You're able to see, okay, these are just human beings doing what human beings do. And we have to love them also. Now, should we strive for that higher angelic view? I mean, maybe. Or maybe that's not possible. Maybe human beings are not meant to have those kinds of experiences. So I don't know. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah, it's interesting. I remember learning that one of the differences between, like when I was becoming more religious, that sort of an understanding of turn the other cheek was a very Christian understanding. And this is a straw man and an oversimplification, but kind of the sense that we should just forgive our enemies and allow them endless chances to do better. And I remember learning that in Judaism, there's definite stuff about vengeance.
Yeah.
There's definite stuff about holy war. There's definite stuff about self-defense. It's very much not, yeah, please slap me on the other side. Thank you.
Yeah. Rabbi Steinsaltz says something very interesting about Tehillim that we haven't run into it yet, but eventually we will. There's in many chapters in Tehillim are very, very sweet in the beginning. They start out these pastoral images, everything's very nice, and it's like, and it's very nice. And then at the very end, he says something like, and destroy your enemies and let them be, let them, and 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 Rabbi Steinsaltz says, what's going on here? This is weird, right? I mean, because here he is, this beautifully, we're up in the sky and we're in this great relationship with God. And then all of a sudden he's like, and crush my enemies. So he says it's like this. It's like, he says that the experience is that, he gets into this kind of ideal world. He's in this spiritual space. And then suddenly he remembers that, oh, there's a real world, and in the real world, I have enemies, and in the real world, things really are nasty. And so I have to address that nasty reality. Like, and so he does that. And that's an interesting, it's an interesting thought. But he definitely, prays against his enemies.
What I was taught about the red was that it's a human reaction when you've been saved from enemies to have that kind of reaction. But the victim is entitled to that.
Right.
But onlookers, whether they're angels or not, onlookers are not, that it's unseemly. That was the word that was given to me. Unseemly. The victims are allowed, but for others, it's unseemly.
When
Oh.
it's an interesting distinction too, because
Okay, Malka wants to say something.
Oh, go ahead, sir.
Hi, Malka.
I was just gonna say it's also a very different time. It's not like you have the news. It's not like you have allies. You never know when the enemy is coming. They're so isolated. So it's almost like drawing an inner strength, reminding himself God's on my side. And by the way, these people that are against us Jews are also against you. You chose us, remember? Get them. And I think it's partially just to do with the time period that, maybe now if the Psalms had been written by him, it would be, let's pray for our allies. It would be a little more peaceful. But back then it was like they're all out to get us. Let's in a survival mode.
Okay. I mean, yes, it is a very particular kind of, a very particular kind of moment too. By the way, Roxanne found it says Megillah 10b. I suspect it's I think it's in a couple of places, honestly, but that sounds reasonable that it could be a Megillah 10b. That's an interesting place for it to be, honestly. But I'll take a look at it. So I have my Sefaria in my pocket, so I can do I can do anything. Let me just see if that's it. 1 second. Don't mind the distracted look on my face. It's not Yallah. Okay, I'll look it up later. I won't do it now, but that seems reasonable. Yeah, I know that it's in the Gemara, and I know that it's in the Gemara. I think it's in the Gemara in more than one place. I think it's also in Shemot Rabbah, which is like, the Midrash. I think it's also there.
This is the Miriam thing, the angels and the Miriam thing.
Yeah, she says a Megillah 10b.
I thought it was in Tanakh. It was Midrash on Tanakh.
No, it's in Midrash Rabbah, but I think it's also in the Gemara. I think it's in a couple of different places. I think there's a couple different versions of it.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I also think like the victim and the onlooker thing is really critical. You have so much of this this movement to suppress, suppress what you really feel, because you're just supposed to forgive, and you can't move past that feeling, that emotion.
Yeah.
You have to go through it too.
Although I think I think the phrase turning the other cheek is actually that when I think when it's said in the New Testament, it's an Aramaic paraphrase of something in Navi. I forget where it is, but I've seen it, but it is there somewhere. Probably not in the same meaning, but it is there. Okay, other questions, thoughts?
Well, I guess I've always had very mixed feelings when I've read the psalm, and asking God to intercede on your behalf, which to me always comes across as being an act of hubris. Clearly, I've spent too much time in secular society, and so I look askance at these requests. But even if God intercedes on your behalf in the sense that the outcome that you wish is achieved, how do you know God is on your side? How do you know that what happened was for the good?
Well, well, that's a good question. I mean, one answer to the question would be that it's all going to be for the good, right? I mean, we don't know, it may be, right? I always say this about suffering, like we think of suffering as bad, but we also know that many of the best things in our life came through suffering. Many of our best qualities, but so it's not always it's not always good, easy to know what's good for you. Right? Maybe the best prayer is to ask God to give you what he knows is good for you, as opposed to asking God for specific things because you don't know that specific things are going to be good for you. I thank God for all the things that he didn't give me that I asked for, because they would have been horrible. So
I mean, there's a war going on right now, and this is a psalm that would be of special relevance to people on both sides of the conflict.
yes, well, yes. I mean, and that's that's always wonder what, everybody is poor God. Everybody's calling on him to help them, at cross purposes. I know. I feel sorry for the creator. Well, we have a quote here from the Quran. Is it those who spend their wealth in the way of God and do not follow up with what they spend with reminders through generosity, insults will have reward for their kind words of forgiveness are better than charity followed by insults. Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, I mean, I think that I think your comment that you know extreme forgiveness can make you a fool, right? And you do have to have a sense of self, and you have to speak up for yourself. There is something to that, right? And there's no shame in speaking up for yourself, and there's no shame in being able to say to God, please pay attention, here I'm struggling here, please help me. I think that there's no fault in that. Okay. Any case, everybody knows where to find me. If you have any more questions, thoughts, arguments, you want, oh wait, Jan, sorry, Jan. Unmute. You can't unmute. I can't hear you. No mute. You're muted. You have to click the thing that says unmute. It's not. I can't read lips. You can put it in the chat. You can type it in the chat. I don't know why you're muted here. Unmute. Ask to unmute. No, you can't. Okay. If anybody has, wait. Okay. 1. I'm waiting. 2, 2, 2, 2. Okay. Are we unmuted? No. Okay. Okay. Mic is broken. Sorry about that. Okay, so sorry. Okay, everybody should have a beautiful, beautiful week. And I hope you see you Wednesday. I hope we get the mic fixed. IT, that's Harry. Harry's right there, down there. Harry, he knows everything. Okay, poor Harry. Okay, thank you so much, everybody. I appreciate it. Have a beautiful week. Thank you for being keeping me company. Bye.